computer. Okay, all right. Well, we're gathered tonight to hear from one of Srila Prabhupada's early disciples, Dayananda Prabhu. Um, I'm going to read some things that I have here. He was an early disciple of Srila Prabhupada and the author of The Perfect Society, Daivi Varnasrama, a compelling work that explores how Vedic principles can shape a sustainable and spiritually rooted world. Dayananda Prabhu helped establish ISKCON temples in Los Angeles and Tehran. A scholar of Sanskrit, Hindi, Bengali, Farsi, and Spanish, Dayananda Prabhu brings decades of experience in temple leadership, scriptural study.
I'm coming.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead and mute someone there. And Vedic living. He will share deep reflections on Varnasrama Dharma and its role in solving today's environmental and social challenges. So for those of you that weren't or just joining, I was speaking with him just moments ago about giving maybe a little bit of background in terms of being an early disciple of Srila Prabhupada. So I'm going to maybe just with a few questions pull some of those topics out of him, and just so we can get a chance to know you. So let us know first of all, where did you appear in this lifetime? Where are you from? You're born in America?
Yeah. I was born in Southern California, in the LA suburb.
Oh, okay.
So that's why I joined in San Francisco. My girlfriend and I went to San Francisco, and we joined there at with Malati and Shamsundar and Mukunda and all those devotees, Ayagriva and all those. And so then Prabhupada asked a couple of other devotees to go to LA. I was sort of, I consider myself junior. He asked a couple of other devotees to go to LA and open a center. The theme in those days was to open temples. We had no Harinam or book distribution or anything like that. So open temples. So they didn't go. We went instead. So my wife and I and one other, we went to LA and opened the temple there. And we were maintaining it for a couple of years until Tamal Krishna Maharaj and others came. Vishnu John, Tamal Krishna, they sort of breathed life into our little, our small endeavor. But we were there for 2 years before the big devotees came.
Okay. So let me ask a question there. So you mentioned your girlfriend and you mentioned wife. So your girlfriend became your wife.
Well, you couldn't. In the rules in those days was that some devotees had girlfriends, like Mukunda and well, I don't know about Mukunda was before, but Shamsundar and there was Krishnadas and Subal and there are a few others who had boyfriend, girlfriend, but we knew that the rule was if you wanted to join the group, you had to be married. So when we were initiated, actually, we wanted to be initiated. We made the decision. So I didn't know anything about initiation. I had seen the marriage ceremony and I knew that was the rule. So we went to see Prabhupada and I said, Sri Prabhupada, we want to join the group and we want to be married. So he said, well, first you have to be initiated. I said, oh, okay, we want to be initiated. And he said, so you like the philosophy? And I said, oh, yes, Srila Prabhupada. He said, all right, you can be initiated. So let me finish with the history, okay? Okay, for more history, you can read. I mentioned in Satsarup Maharaj's book and Hari Sori's book and Hayagriva's book. At least those three, I'm there. And so I went to a few different centers. I was, as I said, a temple president in LA for about 3 or 4 years, and then London for a year, and then Dallas for 2.5 years. Then Prabhupada suggested that my wife and I go to Iran, to Tehran. So we helped Ture Rishi. And then after that, I went to India for a while and then ended up in Washington, D.C. In the early 80s, I was a temple president there and etc. So I don't want to get all into a whole lot of details. Is
Okay.
that all right?
Yes.
I like to get down to sort of the subject matter at hand.
Okay. Well, it does give us some opportunity to appreciate your service to Srila Prabhupada's movement in the various places that you've been involved. I mean, there's obviously a lot more that's here, but for tonight, as you're ready to move into the discussion about Varnasrama Dharma and its role in solving today's environmental and social challenges. And so I'll let you take it from there. And if you want to do screen sharing, let me make sure that you try to screen share if it's not, I don't have it enabled, then,
Uh,
well, it should be available. It should be available to you, but you can try and then I can
okay,
respond.
let's see. Do I do share?
Yeah, just at the very bottom, you'll see share and you should
It
be able.
says you can request sharing for this
Go ahead
meeting.
and do that. Okay, and now
I just sent the
there
request.
you go. Now you should be able to go.
Okay, good. Yeah. So let's see. Oh, why? Oh, yeah. Here's the one. I got to share this one here. Okay, can you see that all right? It says Daiva
Yes,
Varnashram Dharma. All
yes.
right, so these are a series of slides that I'm going to show. And starting with, whoops, where are we? Starting with this one. So I'd like to give sort of a fast moving presentation, about 20 minutes. And this is really instructional. It's from Shastra. So if you like, you can take notes or you can request a copy of the PDF at the end because along with the points that I make, I have uh, references to Shastra. And I prefer that questions be asked at the end and or you could put them in the chat. So starting off, Varnashram is civilized society. And this is a quote from Prabhupada. This Varnashram Dharma is the beginning of human civilization. Unless one comes to this stage or institution accepting this Varnashram Dharma, he is not to be considered as human being or civilized human being. And my comments on this is that some devotees are reluctant to implement it, but the question we should be asking is how is it possible to implement Krishna consciousness in an uncivilized society? And my answer is that we should implement Varnashram to make society civilized, that is, human. Now, the principle or philosophy. In 1977, there's a famous discussion, February 14th, Mayapur. Prabhupada wanted to. He spoke several things. He it was a nice discussion of Varnashram, but he wanted to speak about principle, Varnashram principle, or the philosophy or mechanics, if you will, of Varnashram. However, he was speaking with Hari Suri and Satsrup, and they didn't respond very well. They didn't interact very well. And one point, Satsarup said something about the temples. Well, what do we do in the temple? Prabhupada said, why are you bringing our temples? He said, I am talking of the principle. So my point here is that before thinking too much about implementation, we also need to understand the principle or the philosophy. So my talk here presents philosophy, which should be understood along with attempts at implementation. Now, scope. This is fascinating to me. When I started to do research on Varnashram, I came across this. This is also from that 1977 discussion. Prabhupada spoke of implementing Varnashram in Manipur to show an example of an entire state or country that has adopted Varnashram. Now you can hear me okay, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Just I didn't want to talk for 20 minutes and then okay. So I think just reflect on that. I don't have anything really to say about that, but we tend to think of, I do have something, we tend to think of Varnashram as farms and cow protection. And well, often, I'm not saying everyone, but often little more than that. So here he's talking about an entire country. He called it also, next point, he called it para upakar, meaning a benefit to the masses. And in a few places I have quotes where he said that. So most devotees are familiar with this verse, Bharata Bhumite Manusha Janma, and Kara para upakar. So that generally refers to the Sankirtan movement, and Prabhupada referred to it as preaching, as spreading the Sankirtan movement. But here, toward the end of Prabhupada's stay with us, he included Varnasrama in that. He said that Varnasrama is parupakar, meaning it's a benefit to the masses. It's for everyone. Now, Daya Varnasrama is karma yoga. Sometimes I feel, anyway, I don't know if this is universally felt, but I feel that devotees often don't know really what karma yoga is fully. So Prabhupada here says, it is very great achievement that you work hard, earn money, and give it to Krishna. That is a great sacrifice. So by karma yoga also you can satisfy, because the main business is to satisfy Krishna. Atah pumbir dvijashreshta, varnashrama vibhagasha. There are 4 varnas and 4 ashramas: Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyasi. So this point here, that second paragraph, second point, he uses karma yoga and varnashrama in the same sentence. They're basically the same. So he's saying, yet karoshi, whatever you're doing. Often when he defines karma yoga, he refers to that verse, yet karoshi. Whatever you're doing, you must do it for Krishna's satisfaction. That's from a lecture. And in studying the literatures, going through, this is not the only place. I've just given the one quote, but there are many. Now, Varnashram and Yajna. This is another thing I think that devotees are not, most devotees that I speak to about Varnashrama talk about farms, they talk about implementing the Varnas, but I'm getting feedback there. Okay. But they don't talk about yajna. Vedic society is a yajna society. The Buddhists and Jains, they split off from the Vedic society. The modern vegans, they also don't believe in yajna. So they're also non-Vedic. This idea of yajna in Veda and Vedanta and throughout history is it's essential. And yajna is at the center of Varnashrama. You can't have Varnashrama without yajna. So Bhagavad Gita says that work must be done as yajna for Vishnu. And then in the purport to number 10, Prabhupada explains that yajna means Sankirtan yajna. And most of the 3rd chapter of the Gita indicates that yajna is at the heart of the Varnashram system. Now, if there's any doubt about that, there's a wonderful article that you can read called Yajna or Sacrifice for the Supreme that Srila Prabhupada wrote in 1956 for his Back to Godhead magazine. And Bhakti Raghava Swami uses that article and one or two of Prabhupada's articles that he wrote before he came to the United States as sort of pillars of his preaching on Varnashram. So this is a very important article for anyone who is interested in Varnashram. Varnashram and Bhakti. What's that? Varnashrama and Bhakti. Now, this is another essential item that that devotees should know. They should know the relationship of Varnashram and Bhakti, and why, if we're a Bhakti Yoga movement, why we need to be also a Varnashram movement. They're intertwined, Varnashram and Bhakti. So first of all, there's two two areas that I recommended studying. First of all is the 18th chapter, just a few verses, verses 40 through 47, 48, 49, 50, like that. But especially 40, 47. And then Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, chapter 17, 18, in the Uddhava Gita, where Krishna speaks to Uddhava about Varnashram. And then Narada Muni in the 7th canto, where in the 7th canto, where Narada Muni speaks to Yudhishthira about Varnashram. So let's start at the top here. First point, chapter 8, verse 46 gives the essence. Now, this is the essence of the relationship of Varnashram and Bhakti, but which Krishna repeats also in Srimad Bhagavatam. By worship of the Lord, which is Bhakti, who is the source of all beings and who is all pervading, a man can attain perfection through performing his own work. And I've written here that is his own work, meaning swakarma, according to Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. So this section of the Gita, 1840 starts with a statement. Krishna says that no one can escape the influence of the three gunas, that the three gunas act on the highest beings down to the lowest, the demigods down to the lowest. So the three gunas form our swabhavas. Our swabhavas are our characteristics that we're born with. We have certain characteristics. Somebody's smart, somebody's stupid. So I don't know, that just came out. Sorry for that. Then swabhavas influence our swakarma. Swakarma means whether we're suited to be a Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. So our swabhavas mean that we have these characteristics that Krishna describes here in this section. But swakarma means that we can actually perform the work. We have the characteristics to do it. So what is also Sudharma? Sudharma is connected in the sense that Sudharma is telling us that we should do it. We have the responsibility to be a Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. Sakarma means that we can do it, and Sudharma means that we have the responsibility to do it. Now, this is material. What about spiritual? In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Mahaprabhu says, Jiver Sarupoi. So Sarup means basically the same as Subhava. Swarup means that it's the characteristic of the soul. So we have characteristics that we're born with. Our body and mind is shaped by the gunas, but we have an eternal characteristic, which is our Sarupa, and that is, the nature of that is Krishnair Nitto Dasa, so that we are eternal servant of Krishna. So those two are put together. If you look again back up at the top point, verse 46 puts the two together. It says that we, by worship of the Lord, or by Krishnair Nityadasa, that is how we're supposed to operate in that relationship between Varnasrama and Bhakti. And then, of course, in the Bhagavatam elaborates more fully on that spiritual aspect of Dharma Sanushta Pungsang Vishvaksena Kutasvya. And then Savai Pungsang Paro Dharma. So Dharma means that on one case, Dharma in the material world means that we should act according to Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. But the highest Dharma is Bhakti. So, as I said, I recommend these chapters, 17, 18, from Canto 11 from the Uddhava Gita. Uddhava starts it off by asking Krishna, how can humans achieve bhakti to you through Varnasrama? And Krishna explains in the 2 chapters. Now, I want to switch gears here a little bit and talk about what devotees in the future, this is about the future of implementing Varnashram. I feel it's inevitable. I'm not really disturbed at this point in my life that, oh, devotees should do this or that, or the leaders should do this. Oh, they haven't done that. I'm not very. I think in due course of time, it must be done. I don't see how it won't happen. So in the future, uh, dharma for devotees. Let me say first of all, make this statement: dharma for devotees means the rules for varnashrama, bhakti sadhana, and sankirtan yajna. So we have certain rules. Prabhupada has given us basic rules like 4 regular principles and 16 rounds and things like that. We don't have much or anything really for Varnashrama. And we have some guidelines that we do for Sankirtan Yajna. But for proper governance, when we establish proper governance, that includes Varnashrama, devotees will eventually need a comprehensive law book for these. And the Dharma Shastras, like Manu, they provide for that. They indicate that, yes, it's not just the Dharma that comes from Krishna, from the Supreme, from the Shastra, but there's also Jati Dharma, as we read in Bhagavad Gita, Kula Dharma, Jati Dharma. There's dharmas for regions. These are accepted in Manu and other literatures. Dharmas for regions, meaning that a king, he might have his own interpretation of dharma. So here's some references that I used in doing research for my book. And I recommend these. If anybody wants to seriously study Dharma Shastra, I don't know if how far somebody wants to go with that, but this man, Patrick Olivelle, he's a scholar. He was raised in Sri Lanka. He's Sri Lankan, and despite his name, he's a Buddhist. He was raised a Buddhist, but he got into Dharma Shastra as a PhD study and so forth. So he's put together these books, these translations. I'm not necessarily recommending his translation, but he has translations and he's got footnotes for the translations, why he translated it in a certain way, and he has the transliteration, the original Sanskrit. So one who knows Sanskrit can easily check to see if they like his translation. Then a Spirit of Hindu Law is considered an important book on Hindu law. It's basically the history of Hindu law. Now, if anybody doubts that, well, who are we to create our own Dharma book? There are many commentaries throughout the years or throughout the centuries on Dharma Shastra. I mean, of course, they have to be notable ones to be followed. I mean, and some of the important ones I've listed here, Medhatiti and Baruchi, etc. So, as a final note on this page, Prataparudra also he commissioned a Manava Dharma Deepika. In this case, Deepika means to shed light. It's a commentary on Manava. It means Manu. So it no longer exists, but I'm introducing it as justification for doing such a thing. This is my book called The Perfect Society, Daiva Varnashrama. It's the reason I gave it that name is because that's the name of two chapters that Prabhupada in the Prabhupada gave in the seventh canto. There are two chapters entitled "The Perfect Society" about Varnasrama. Now, this is my recommendation for implementing Varnasrama. I recommend environmental preaching, which I present in a book that I wrote called The Solution, which I'm giving free to devotees. It casts a wider net than current preaching. And my presentation of environmental preaching shouldn't be confused with the modern concepts of the environmental crisis and the environmental solutions. Instead, it addresses modern society's greed that causes natural disturbances. So the solution to that greed is Vedic culture. That is Varnasrama and Sankirtan Yajna. The solution is not just spiritual, it's cultural. It's Vedic culture. And when I say not just spiritual, I've gotten away from using the word spiritual because I feel that spiritual is Brahmana. Brahmana actually means, in a sense, it means spiritual. It means the devotee of the Supreme Spirit. Brahma is the Supreme Spirit. So Brahmana means devotee of the Supreme Spirit. Or we say Parabrahman, which is Krishna, of course, but the Supreme Spirit, Brahmana. So, but everybody's not a Brahmana. So everybody's not spiritual. Moreover, spiritual is not well defined in the modern world. Spiritual used to mean a Christian term related to the Holy Spirit, but it has come to mean that, like somebody could say that I had a real spiritual connection with that woman. So it's not the word spiritual is no longer very spiritual. This is the final slide. This is a sort of a one sentence explanation of my book, The Solution. It's for young, agnostic, environmentally minded non-devotees. It only takes an hour to read. And the solution is that Vedic culture offers 4 solutions. All souls are equal. Sankirtan, which I introduce as celebration of Leela and Nama. And Varna, which is an agrarian economy, and Ashrama, which is tolerance of nature. It's difficult to summarize these things in one short phrase. But there I do it. So I promised that was the last slide, but this is actually the last slide. This is my email. So for a copy of this PDF or a free copy of The Solution, that book, The Solution, or just a dialogue, please send me an email. I really finished just on time, as I had hoped. By the way, the solution is available in English, Spanish, and French. So how do I switch this back now?
So you should have there says stop screen share. Let's see if I can. You see that?
I'm not. My thing went small. I don't know where the large one is.
Let's see if I can help any here with my controls. Let's see if I take that off.
Oh, okay. Now it's big. Okay.
Okay, there we are. Okay.
Okay, good.
Prabhu, thank you so much for that. We can now have some questions. Raise your hands digitally, or you can use the chat to put any questions in if you don't care to, verbalize them, and I can read them. I'll read them completely so that for questions. So any questions on that? Thank you so much for because I do have some questions. So also wanted just a first kind of a housekeeping. The book, The Perfect Society, Daivi Varnasrama, is available on Amazon at very inexpensive. What I think it was $13, something, if I remember correctly.
It's a little expensive. I published through Maya Priya, and I think it's like $19 or something like that.
Whatever it is on Amazon. I know, I thought it was less than that, but anyway, whatever it is, get it. That's
The other one is free though.
yes, that's good. So do get those. So some questions. I don't know if anyone. I can't see. Let me check and see if I see any hands up with this. I'll go to a different view. This will help me to see if there are any hands raised. Otherwise, I want to give everyone a chance to propose any questions, but I did have some questions for something that I'd like to ask you. You reflect on at the very beginning. You quoted and made the distinction between animal life and civilized life, and of course, most or all of our preaching is directed towards the uncivilized in that regard. Your thoughts on that effectiveness, because once again, bringing uncivilized and trying to, going through the process of making them civilized, etc., or quote, emphasizing our own homegrown persons. I'm reflecting on the quote Srila Prabhupada when asked about future generations, the children of your children. So I'm just looking at from a 10,000-foot view. Most of our effort is to make the uncivilized civilized, which is it is what it is, versus how much effort to home grow our own. So hopefully that makes some sense. And if not,
I think it is. I think we need to become better at taking care of our own, so that we can become better at cultivating outside people.
Just a moment.
A lot of times.
Okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, a lot of times devotees criticize that. Well, I can think of one of our leaders actually who criticizes this idea of over-reliance on agyata sukriti, that we just go out and we chant, and we also distribute books without much follow-up and much care. But if we were to become I'm not suggesting that I don't like to really criticize heavily. In other words, I'm suggesting not as a criticism, but simply as an addition to our current direction, that it would be useful if we became better at caring. So that's caring for our own, but also caring for those who we preach to.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Atmananda Prabhu has his hand up. Can you unmute?
I'm writing a novel right now, and there's three things that it's about somebody who establishes a successful movement and spreads basically Varnasrama and some kirtan, and out of three things that he attributes the success to his movement, one is that point, caring for the people.
Thank you for that. Atmananda Prabhu, go ahead.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Dayananda Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
I'm in New Zealand, although I'm originally from Connecticut. But I'm very interested in your point about environmental preaching. I think that's the phrase you used. But
yes.
But my question is, what does that mean in application? Or what can I do, or anyone who is active or aspiring for Krishna consciousness do in their present situation? Now, that's a big question because everyone's in different situations. But I think you've almost answered it, at least partly, with your comment just at the end there, just now, about caring.
Well,
if I care for myself, I care for my family.
I
I
wrote
think
that book. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
I think you mentioned that if we take care of ourselves, care for ourselves and our immediate family or friends, whatever, then we can care for others. That's how I see it, and I think that's kind of what you're saying.
Kind of. I sort of meant it more on in an organizational level, I think. But yes, definitely. Now I've written that book. If you want me to send me your address, and I'll send you a copy. I don't know for sure. I've sent them in New Zealand. I suppose I can send them to. I mean, I've sent them to Australia, but I don't know about New Zealand. I think I can send them to New
Yeah,
Zealand.
yes,
Send me.
I'll send you my email address. Thank you very much.
Well, no, I mean, if you want a physical copy, I'll send you a physical copy. Send me your mailing address, and I'll send you
Oh, I see.
one of the books.
Is there any other form,
Yeah,
digital
you can.
or
I'll send it
audible?
to you in PDF if you want.
Yeah, that would be good.
You have
PDF.
another
Okay.
question. Okay, can you talk more about what you envision as the first steps to reestablish Varnasrama, and how do you see that unfold?
Um, I think the first steps are that more devotees should understand the relationship of Varnashrama and Bhakti. If I were the Supreme Personality of ISKCON, uh, uh, I mean, if I had some influence, I would say that they should start teaching it in Bhakti Shastri. There's a few things I would teach in Bhakti Shastri. I would teach these same subjects that I've introduced. One is Varnashram and the Karma Yoga, Varnashram and Yagya. I would have emphasis on Karma Yoga and Yagya, and also Varnashram and Bhakti from the Bhagavad Gita 18th chapter and from the those two 11th canto and 7th canto. So those things I feel should be taught more integrally in ISKCON, like for Bhakti Shastri. So I think rather than in implementation, rather than say, oh, we should go and buy a bunch of farms, yeah, certainly we should expand in that way. There's no question. I mean, that's our current direction. But I think that we should understand philosophically the importance of doing it.
All right. Any other questions? I do have another question. Thank you for the one that you answered for me already. Okay. Well, Akuranath has his hand up. I'll defer to him since I'm the host here. I don't want to dominate. Akuranath Peru, go ahead, please.
Well, thank you for the presentation. I was wondering about, sort of basic morality, like the Ten Commandments, or, don't lie, don't cheat, don't exploit others, see people as ends in themselves. How does that fit in with Varnashram Dharma in general? Like these basic principles that are sort of common to pretty much all ethical systems.
Well, the Varnashram is not an ethical system. It's dharma. Varnashram dharma it's a dharma that includes ethical systems. It includes morals, and when you study the Bhagavatam, those chapters where Krishna speaks to Uddhava on Varnashram, you'll see, ethical. For example, speaking of ethics, I suppose it would be ethical, is that there's a statement in there where one should do sacrifice, but one shouldn't do animal sacrifice. And that the animals is interesting follow-up. It says the animal is saying what these fools are. I'm sorry, now I've forgotten exactly what the animal is thinking, but it says it looks at it from the animal perspective. Krishna's talking about how no animals should not be sacrificed. So uh, that's kind of a moral principle. There's other principles about Avanaprastha at the end of life, when he can no longer perform his duties, he can sort of wrap up his life. And so this is a kind of idea about how one should conduct one's life, what the brahmachari, how the brahmachari should relate to the spiritual master. So these, as far as thou shalt not steal is concerned, that's yeah, those kinds of things are in the various dharma shastras, like Manu, and although we don't take Manu, every portion of Manu, so literally. I mean, so, the acharyas, Madhvacharya and Bhaktivinoda Thakur, they criticize Manu, and they talk about certain sections. Prabhupada makes some quotes from Manu, but we don't just carte blanche accept everything from Manu and the other Dharma Shastras. Yajnavalkya, these are important Dharma Shastras, but we don't just accept those carte blanche. We have to compare those with Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam is our most important reference. So maybe that's kind of a long answer to a short question. I can't relate very well with your question. I don't think it's what you're saying about moral is called Niti Shastra. And what I've been talking about here is Dharma Shastra. So it's a little different. Morals are Niti. At least that's the way I identify with them.
Well, we have two more questions. There's one from Ron.
There's somebody, I got somebody saying that
You had to leave.
Varnasrama Jnana Yoga from
Yes.
Ranganath.
Yes.
Yeah, no.
So can you read? I'll read it aloud in case others aren't looking.
Yes, of course.
Can you say Varnasrama Dharma is also Jnana Yoga, especially in Brahmacharya and Vanaprastha stage? So go ahead.
No. Well, Varnasrama is considered to be karma yoga, and that becomes, if you read Prabhupada's reports, you can understand that if you look carefully. Sometimes Prabhupada's reports, because he uses the English instead of Sanskrit, he kind of I don't know. I keep in my mind, I keep wanting to say he Englishifies it for us. he makes it very modern for us, and so it kind of sometimes it loses its Sanskrit connection. If you read Prabhupada's purports and the texts, you can understand that it's karma yoga, and you can you can understand in the Vishwanath Chakrabarti's commentary that Bhanu Maharaj has translated. Now, the relationship between karma yoga and jnana yoga, I was discussing this with Pradyumna. He gave me this wonderful verse. Too bad I can't remember the Sanskrit or anything, but I'll try to bring up the English. It's that karma yoga is the garbha, is the womb from which jnana yoga is born. So there's an intimate relationship between karma yoga and jnana yoga. We shouldn't think, oh, I'm studying the books, therefore I'm a jnani or I'm a jnana yogi, something like that. It's karma yoga. But as far as brahmacharya, their study, one thing I find interesting is in the fourth chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about various types of yajna, various types of sacrifice. And there's sacrifice that the brahmacharis do, sacrifice that the householders do. The householders sacrifice their possessions, their material things. Brahmacharis sacrifice through study. Um, yeah, so it's a little difficult to say where an individual is, to say that, oh well, I'm practicing karma yoga, or he's practicing karma yoga and he's practicing bhakti. These are very individual kinds of things. But as far as the broad perspective is concerned, Varnasrama is in broad terms, it's really karma yoga, which then, of course, transitions into jnana at some point. So, yeah, you could say that somebody who's a practitioner of Varnashram it could also become a jnana yogi. So it's not that I'm saying that it doesn't exist within that system. It's just that, yeah, based on karma yoga.
Okay, you have a question from Narottam Nitai, and then he has his hand raised. So go ahead, Narottam.
Dandavats, I wanted to say thank you so much for holding this talk. I was really excited when I first got introduced to ISKCON in 2008 officially, because, coming from India, from an old family background of my grandfather, his name was Jagannath. He was a priest of three villages, and, trying to implement Varnashram. So, my question is, I know this is a discussion topic within ISKCON, and we want to implement it. But in terms of practicality of actually making it happen, it takes two to tango, so to speak, or some kind of a plan or something to go ahead and start implementing things, um, so that they can materialize. And there'll be trial and error, a little bit of trial and error based on guidance from those are more dedicated into the movement. But my whole question is, like, how can we, um get dedicated and really start to implement this? Would it be already established farm communities, and have a working model there, or would it be you know uh forming communities together and trying to implement this on from a broader scale perspective? Are we going from a top down institutional to institution to lower levels of management approach, or are we doing in like like four or five different places that are trying to implement it in their own way, seeing which model works, and then move forward? I guess my whole thing, the contention of my question is, how can we practically make this happen? Because it always seems like we're on at the race of time. Like, things are getting more difficult in the world, and we just need to get this implemented sooner than later. If you don't mind me saying, Karkash.
Yeah. Okay, let me start by saying that ISKCON is not centralized. It's a decentralized organization, and there are devotees throughout ISKCON who are interested in Varnashram in various ways. Like, for some years, I don't know if you still do. For example, it just came out into my head. Suresh, he's an old friend of mine. Suresh, I think he lives in Florida, does he? Anyway, he goes around and lectures on Varnashrama. He just goes from temple to temple, and he used to do this. So this is one person. There's another friend of mine. His name is Bhakti Vikash Swami. He's very conservative. Some devotees say that he's a very conservative guru, and he has farms or communities, farm communities in India that he's established. And I visited one and stayed there. It was very interesting. They don't even have running water or electricity. They're very sort of old style Vedic kind of place. And then there's Radhanath Swami. He has a place near Mumbai that's called his eco village, Govardhan, and that's different than what Bhakti Vikash has. but it's also a Varnashram project. And then there's Shivaram Swami, who has a wonderful project in Hungary. So, and then there are the farms in America. There's New Talavan in the south. There's Gita Nagari, and in Pennsylvania there's New Vrindavan. So all of these attempts have been made. Nothing is perfect. I mean, these are, as far as your point about doing it immediately or in the short term, this is very difficult. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm an old man, so I think in terms of a longer term. I think, well, I hope this happens after I die. so, as far as short term is concerned, I will mention, just sort of as from my own perspective, I feel that at least my own contribution, the one I'm trying to make, is that I believe that devotees in general need to be more educated about Varnashram and its relationship with the philosophical relationship with our basic Sankirtan Yagya and Bhakti and Bhakti Marg, so that's one perspective. And the other perspective is that I'm proposing that environmental preaching in conjunction with Varnashram and Sankirtan can increase the direction of it can cast a wider net and recruit potentially more people and a greater variety of people. So that's my idea. But there's many devotees all over ISKCON, just like here. We are getting together and discussing it. I don't know about having it happen overnight. I don't think there's an idea that it's a big ship. ISKCON has become a big ship, and you can't turn a big ship quickly. It has to be done. It's done slowly. I once worked for a big corporation, and they were having trouble. It was IBM, and in the late 80s, they were having difficulty. The share price was falling, and so they brought in a new CEO, and he turned things around. But it took him about between 1 and 2 years for him to do that. So it's a big company. There were, like, I don't know, somewhere between 200 and 400,000 employees around the world. So you can't just implement something overnight. Now in ISKCON, we don't even have that big one CEO to take charge, to turn the ship. I mean, it's sorry, but my opinion is that it's going to take longer than just that 1 to 2 years.
Okay, thank you for that. Sitapati Prabhu, you have your hand up. Go ahead. And then I
Hare
have some
Krishna Prabhu.
comments.
Thank you for your presentation. You mentioned in there Maharaj Prataparudra, the author of the Manava Dharma Dipika. Obviously, he's a Kshatriya. He's written this Dharma Shastra, and it's the role of the Brahmanas and the Kshatriyas to establish Dharma for the particular time, place, and circumstance. So my question is, in terms of implementing Varnashram Dharma right now, what you're doing, what is your Varna?
Are you the same person that asked me that in the WhatsApp group?
Yes.
I'm mixed Dharma. I'm mixed Varna. Is that all right?
I don't know. I've never heard of such a thing.
Yeah, well, there's Ramananda Roy was a mixed Varna. For example, he's an example of somebody with a mixed Varna. You haven't heard of that?
Do you have a scriptural reference for this?
Yes, Ramananda Roy in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Have you read the Chaitanya Charitamrita?
I've read the Chaitanya Charitamrita, but you're not answering my question. What is your Varna is my question.
I said I'm mixed between
Okay.
two Varnas. I'm mixed.
Which Varnas are you mixed between?
Well, as far as I can tell, I'm mixed between Brahmin and Shudra. And within ISKCON, Prabhupada engaged me as a manager, as a kind of a Kshatriya. So I was in the military, so I have some Kshatriya background. Now, in Manu and in the Bhagavatam, I know from our previous discussions, you seem to be looking for somebody who's purely a Brahmin or a Kshatriya or so forth. But in Manu and other Shastras like the Bhagavatam, especially Bhagavatam, that's our most important literature. There are allowances for Brahmins and Kshatriyas to take up Vaishya work. Brahmins can also take up not Shudra. That's the only thing that they're not allowed to do. So the idea of somebody being a pure Brahmin and always acting as a Brahmin it's not that important. There's flexibility within the Vedic system. And to be a purist, with all due respect to you, it seems to me that to be a purist in an impure world, much more so than, it's far less pure than let's say India was, the Vedic culture was just in 100 or 200 years ago. We're talking about an Asuric society that we live in. So we tend to be mixed Varnas, meaning that some of our past we have intelligent people who have been born with, that have mated with unintelligent people, and so we're all mixed up. But we are born with certain characteristics. As I explained, I don't know how much of my lecture you attended, but those characteristics are there, sabhavas. So we have those sabhavas that correspond roughly to a Varna. But as far as mixed is concerned, Ramananda Roy, who was one of 3.5 close associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was a mixed Varna, a Kayasta. Kayastas are considered to be a mixture between Brahmin and Kshatriya. So there are these mixed Varnas. And there are, So I guess I sort of disagree with your rigidity, demanding that another person, or me especially, demanding that I be a Brahmin in order to communicate these things to others. I'm an experienced preacher. I've been serving in ISKCON for since 1967, whatever the math is there, and I've served as temple presidents, and Prabhupada told me to learn Sanskrit. He sent me in Vrindavan to one of the Goswamis, which didn't work out, but so Prabhupada approved of my Sanskrit studies, and he gave me different kinds of advice. Before there was ever GBC, I was one of the main leaders of ISKCON since I had opened the temple. So I have a lot of background association with Prabhupada, and the BBT sent me to India for 3 years, along with my wife, and we worked on a project, BBT under Rameshwar. We worked on a Vaishnava history project. Now, at that time, in the late 80s, the idea was that we were under a lot of pressure to show that ISKCON was an outgrowth of a real religion, religious culture. So Rameshwar wanted to produce a book on that to show that we were bona fide Vaishnava based on a Vaishnava culture lineage. So this was under the auspices of Garuda. Garuda is a scholar, PhD, and we were doing research. So in India, I worked for 3 years just collecting information on Vaishnava history and Indian history. And so I have that background also, the study of Sanskrit and of Indian history and culture and Vaishnava history and culture, pan-Vaishnavism, not just Gaudiya Vaishnavism. So though there's some of my qualifications, I feel a little kind of, I don't know, defensive maybe from some of your questions or from that particular question. Am I a Brahmin or who am I qualified to give this?
Well, the question I asked was, what is your Varna? It seems that you're answering the question, what is your guna and karma? So Krishna says, Chaturvanyam maya shrishtam guna karma vibhagashaha, that I created these 4 varnas or social orders, social classes based on the guna and karma of people. So there is, those are the 4 varnas that Krishna has defined. And then obviously within those varnas, there's a wide range of different personalities. Like you have Yudhishthira at one extreme and then Bhimasen at perhaps another extreme in one aspect. So it seems to me that if we are to establish Varnashram, the very first step to take in doing that is to be able to establish a Varna and acting according to what does it look like to act as a Brahmana or a Kshatriya, and to model that for people. If we remain confused about that basic thing in our own personal comportment and our relationships between each other, then what is the meaning of establishing Varnashram if it collapses into an unstructure the instant that we are pressed to confront, like, okay, how do I fit into the structure? And then we say, well, actually, there is no structure. This is my analysis of the situation. People are always asking, what's the first step to establish Varnashram? Do we get a farm? Do we do this? Do we do that? But if I'm unable to answer the question when asked, what Varna are you? Then what more of establishing Varnashram can be done?
Well, I respect your opinion, but that's not my opinion. I don't agree. Because in Manu and Srimad Bhagavatam, have you read Srimad Bhagavatam on the Varnashram? The
Yes.
4 chapters in the 7th canto and the 2 chapters in the 11th canto.
Yes.
Yeah. So there you'll see that there's a lot of flexibility. That although people are identified with in a certain Varna, there's a lot of flexibility. So it's a matter, and the matter is that what role Varna is just a role in society. It's just a vocation. So the point is and the main point is to organize society to worship Krishna. So if we're worshiping Krishna, that's the main point. And we already have an organized society. So to discount that and say that it's disorganized, that our ISKCON society is disorganized because everybody hasn't clearly defined his Varna, I don't agree with that. It's an organized society. Prabhupada established it as an organized society. And over time, this concept of Varna will become more clearly established. And in the meantime, I'll write books. Somebody else will sweep the floor, and we won't necessarily bother about trying to identify clearly what Varna that person is. But that doesn't mean our society or our endeavor is disorganized. That's my opinion anyway. I'd rather not argue with you. We had a big argument or discussion on the on the internet a while back. Why don't we take this offline, because there's quite a few other questions.
Mhm. There are some well, there's two. Let's see here. But there's a number of different comments. I don't know if they're questions. So I'll just start at the top where they are and then see what's there. This is from Aquarinath. There are a lot. Is he still here? Do you want to read it yourself, Haru? I mean, you certainly can read.
Which one you're talking about? The first one that I wrote?
Yeah, you said there are a lot of presentations, so you can just read it.
Yeah.
I don't know if there was a
I
question.
just attended the Bhaktivedanta Institute from time to time has these seminar type things. There was an online summer series, and I didn't get to attend all of them. I had some other duties at the time, but there were a lot of focused on ethics. There was Krishna Kshetra Swami wrote a book on yoga and animal ethics, in which I would like, you were talking about how the Jains and the Buddhists split off because of the Hindu sacrifices, which at the time were unethical. He also supported that the yoga darshan developed as a partially based on Sankhya darshan, but as a objection to certain kind of animal sacrifices that were being misused. It's looked like an interesting book, but I was just saying they're going to be available. I didn't see Harikesh's presentation on Varnasrama Dharma. I did see one philosophy PhD candidate, and I don't remember her name, Charlotte something, but she was talking about how there's this sort of basic sort of ethics position that people even unconsciously have nowadays, which is it's called capitalist realism, and she was contrasting that with Varnashram's basis of duty to please God and to care about God and His creation and all His created beings. I just thought that I just was commenting that I thought that was an interesting group of seminars, and I'm looking forward to reading. I think Dayananda Maharaj had a talk, and I'm looking forward to watching those videos.
Okay.
Well, let me respond to that a little bit. I would consider myself kind of I don't like the word conservative, but a traditionalist. Let me say traditionalist. In my books, you can see how I'm very speak strongly against capitalism, socialism, democracy, and humanism. I feel that the humanist doctrine, the new humanist doctrine that started in the late 1800s, and the socialist doctrine have really corrupted a lot of society and religion also, because religions have tended to become more socialistic and humanistic. And I guess the bottom line of what I want to say is that the integration of Varnashram with modern society, I don't agree with. There are a lot of devotees who would like to do that, and I respect those devotees tremendously. I mean, their preaching records, they have tremendous preaching records, and they very intelligent. For example, Urmila, who I think is a wonderful devotee. She just came out with a book basically on Varna. It's called Careers, something about careers, and it's primarily about Varna, but
Career Dharma.
Career Dharma, yes. And there's a chapter or two on ashrama. I pretty much read the book, but I don't agree with her approach because it's too modernistic, and which is fine. I think that ISKCON, it's important for ISKCON to have everyone in it. I shouldn't be allowed to say that Urmila can't be in ISKCON, and she shouldn't be allowed to. Somebody, Karen, you're coming through. Could you turn your thing off?
I just took care of that. Go ahead.
Okay. So I think it's wonderful that we have sort of whatever you want to call them, traditionalists and non-traditionalists. But I guess I'm reacting by saying that I think it's very important to imbibe the spirit of what Prabhupada was trying to establish, which was quite a bit against the modern society and what modern society is doing. And it's not something we could do overnight. It's something that's long term. And in the interim, maybe we need to do exactly what all these devotees like Dayananda Maharaj and Urmila are doing. So who am I to criticize? I'm not,
I have a question then, not on that topic. I wanted to see if there was anything else on that topic because I had a number of questions, but I was deferring. In the interest of time, I'll go to one that I think is the most important in my thinking. In the class given on Srila Prabhupada's, on Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's disappearance day, disappearance or appearance, I always get them mixed up. One of those days, one or the other. Srila Prabhupada talks about the Hare Krishna movement. And he said, and he's referring to the movement in the historical sense after the disappearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he said that it deteriorated, his words. And he mentions Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this is going on, and we know verses from the Chaitanya Charitamrita where simply by looking at another devotee or a person who was infected with love of God, others would be infected. I mean, it was just like, it was like COVID spreading on steroids or something like that. I mean, it was, who can imagine that, but then only relatively short time up to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, it had become unrecognizable. And Srila Prabhupada talks about that history. The point being that, so I'm using that framing to say, to ask, what do you see as the elements that would prevent a deterioration if not capturing like the moment to move forward to solidifying the Hare Krishna movement in Varnasrama?
Well, my opinion regarding the history of Bengal Vaishnavism is that Prabhupada has given us this salvation formula to call Varnashram para upakar and to say that we should cut up. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says cut up para upakar. We must do cut up. We must do the para upakar, and to then define it as Varnashrama. I think that's an incredible vision that Prabhupada shared with us. So we not only are spreading the Sankirtan movement, we're not spreading the Rasa Shastra movement, as some devotees. I spoke to one devotee, an old friend. I said, could you, he's a scholar at Rutgers University, PhD professor, said, could you get involved with me a little bit with this Varnashram thing? And he said, oh, no. He said, no, it's proven not to work in ISKCON. That we tried to implement these old Vedic kind of things, and it just didn't work in society. So he didn't want anything to do with it. So I'm just giving that as an example of the kind of resistance that some devotees have toward Varnashrama. So he prefers, and there's another old friend too, who's also a scholar, who they want to focus on Rasa, Krishna, and his leelas with all different leelas, but especially with the gopis. And so that's fine preaching. They want to preach in that way, but that's, in my mind, that's the history of Bengal Vaishnavism, is which is heavily criticized by people all over India, especially religious people. Religious people say that, those Bengalis were all soft, that they couldn't, they were just having their kirtans and trying to be in ecstasy, and they couldn't even maintain themselves. They got defeated by the Muslims. They're just pushed around. So that's a complaint. So Prabhupada, the fact that Prabhupada is establishing Varnasrama, a complete society. There's just one little story. I love to tell this story. I found out that one of my ancestors was an early Quaker. This was before the United States was formed, before it broke away from England, and there was a French-Indian War. So the Quakers had established the state of Pennsylvania, and the Quakers were pacifists. So they, when they were being attacked, the Indians were killing them and scalping them. Apparently one of my ancestors was scalped. So these Quakers, they were on the Pennsylvania Assembly, meaning they were legislators. So they didn't want to have war. They were for peace. So they kicked them off. They said, "Get the heck out of here, you Quakers. We're at war. We have to fight war." So the point is that you can't just be absorbed in Rasa Lila. You can't just have your head in the clouds like that. You have to have a complete society. And I call these societies like the Jains, the vegans, the Amish, and to some degree the Quakers. These I call parasites, in the sense of benign parasites. I like to use the word parasite because it sounds so bad, but I mean in the sense of benign parasite. They live on the host, and which is fine. They contribute to the host also, but they can't live independently. None of those religions can live independently because they don't have all four varnas.
Okay.
So Prabhupada established four varnas. It's an amazing thing he's done. And if we can do this, if we can establish four varnas and take over some areas, we can be complete and perfect of ourselves.
Now, so that is the crux of my question. So we don't disagree on that, and the history you've well explained. But also, I'm looking at the perspective that was much simpler times. I mean, I can click on the internet right now and see manners of depravity that will be hardly imaginable at that time. And certainly the people that we're interacting with are also the products of these things. So my question, what I'm trying to really identify, and I want to make sure I'm understanding, what you identify as the singular or multiple, if there are, item that we have that was not present during that time that will prevent us or gives us the luxury of time. Let me put it in that, phrase it like that.
I don't understand. In that time, meaning you're talking about in Bengal?
During Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, after the disappearance of Chaitanya, when we did have the six Goswamis and a number of other very luminous Vaishnavas who appeared after that time.
Yeah.
Does that question, you follow the?
Yeah.
So you're saying that simply by Srila Prabhupada presenting us the mandate to establish a complete society, which I do agree, that if that's done, that gives us the potential to last through all the other things that go, because you have everything.
Yes.
Okay, and I agree with that. But gosh, I feel personally a time clock that we're under the same attack. When I look, okay, another perspective. When I look at our it kind of ties in with the question I asked earlier in terms of growing our own. I don't know, and this is not a really informed like counting numbers, that we're doing that well it's like filling a bucket and the bucket is leaking out in terms of the quality and quantity of persons. And I'm speaking more of the quality, because taking persons from the general mass of society versus growing our own. That's how these two questions are connected. So anyway, if you can speak to that, I think you gather what my concerned question is, hopefully.
Yeah, I don't know how to answer it directly. I'm pretty much of an optimist. I've gone through different stages, thinking that ISKCON has to do this, it has to do that. Why won't they do this? But I'm pretty much optimistic. Obviously, I don't like to see corruption and abuse and that kind of thing. But it's in a large group or large society, it's hard to avoid certain things. And I think that because I joined very early on, somehow or other, I never expected ISKCON to be perfect. And I think that devotees made a wrong turn, and it started happening in the 70s, I think, when they started to preach that ISKCON is a perfect society. Now, Prabhupada would say things like that, but I don't know. Maybe it was Prabhupada that devotees took their lead from Prabhupada on that. But
I think
we're
anyone
not.
who's been a temple president anywhere would attest to that.
Well, I think that's having been temple president. But so I never felt that it was a perfect society. So I think because of that, I just think that what ISKCON is fantastic and devotees are wonderful and we have potential for so many things. I mean, I've studied the history. We have a tremendous trajectory. There are certainly things that I think we should do. I think we should make more money out of Sankirtan, book distribution. I think we should implement Varnasrama. I think we should have more devotees on the streets and chanting and festivals and things like that. So, but those are just like personal pet things. I just think ISKCON is well managed. I think, which is like odd for, I think, an old devotee my age to say, because a lot of devotees are very critical. I mean, I can sit down and criticize with you if you want, but my general opinion is, I mean, genuinely, my genuine opinion is that, look, I joined and the second temple for a storefront. Mukunda came one morning and he said, I had this dream that we had a big house with a big lawn for a temple. And I thought, wow, a big house with a big lawn. Man, that's something, I don't know why I remember that from 50, some years ago. But so that was the dream of those days, to see this, Mayapur TOEP, and to see sannyasis running around and collecting thousands of disciples and all this. For me, it's just like, in a way, I feel like I took a nap. I went to sleep. Like, what is that fable? The guy lies down and takes a nap and wakes up 55
Rip
years
Van
later.
Winkle.
Yeah, Rip Van Winkle. I feel like that in a way, that if I look back on that time, it just like, how do we, and all these Russian devotees, and they're running around India and, just incredible what's happened.
Yes.
Yeah, we need to do more. We need Varnashram. We absolutely need to do more. But
yeah,
I guess I'm a believer of in due time. We have to struggle. We have to do the struggle, but it's really up to Krishna how it's going to come out, and at what stage Krishna is going to allow us to do what. But let me just say one more thing, that in my study of Vaishnava history and the development of Bengal Vaishnavism, I think that what Prabhupada has done with this Varnashram, emphasizing Varnashram, is brilliant. And first of all, his interpretation of, and Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada's interpretation of Sankirtan Yagya, of spreading it wide and opening mutts around India, and then Prabhupada opening temples all around the world, this interpretation is different from the Gaudiya interpretation of Sankirtan and of developing your Siddha Pranali and all these things. So these modern sort of vehicles that Prabhupada has established, they're brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And then this idea of decentralization of ISKCON, not too much heavy centralization, because the over time, a religion can be destroyed by destroying its central body. So that's been done. It was done by the Spanish in South America. It was done by the Muslims in India with the Buddhists. So Prabhupada's idea of decentralization. So his Bhaktisiddhanta's interpretation of Sankirtan Yajna, how to spread it widely, the Varnasrama, decentralization. Some of these things that Prabhupada, they seem simple, but brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I think that there's a fantastic foundation. Sorry, I didn't mean to get off. It was really
I'm wondering, but my question, and not to go on, because I wanted to read some of the comments that are in the chat. It may be some questions there, but it wasn't a criticism of ISKCON in terms of its growth. I often have that same experience when I go to the Alachua farm. I was there when it was just the land and one or two cows, and I go there and and in fact, this entire Hare Krishna movement has happened in our lifetimes. I mean, it's a modern day miracle. But okay, let me go. Someone made this comment. Let me see if there is a question in there. He just mentions Pancharatna Prabhu, president of the Giridhari Dalji Mandir in Jaipur, has started a large, complete, well-funded farm community about 30 miles outside of Jaipur. I guess it's just a point of information. Vidur is another famous person who was mixed Varna.
I think we could skip over. There's a few comments on this Varna thing. I don't think it's important to dwell on that.
Okay.
Dutas, that's another one. By birth, yes, but then
most of them seem like they're just comments. They're not questions per se. Are there any other questions? I'll just ask that. So Parupakar, so including Varnasrama in the mass movement. If once again, I'll just continue on with my question just to make sure that I'm understanding. So you're saying that is that including that in the mass movement, Parupakar, Varnasrama is really the element that will give us sustainability over the long run as far as by comparison what happened after the disappearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his followers. Comparatively.
Yeah, the Varnasrama, yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. That was really what I was trying to understand. It was not at all meant to be a criticism of ISKCON per se. It was just looking at here's something that happened historically, and here we are now, so many years later. And you presented it that you felt that in the long run that this would be established, and I wanted to understand what elements you see as capable of making that difference.
Yeah, I mean, devotees are making various attempts. I mean, we got a few comments here. I haven't read them carefully, but mentioning different devotees that are doing different things, and yeah, I mean, at all different levels too. And then there are devotees who are frustrated. They say, "Oh, we should do more," which is good. Also, we should be frustrated. Prabhupada said that that's a sign of lolyang, that to be anxious to do more service.
Yes.
So,
yes,
yeah.
So it's mentioned here different projects. The Harmony Collective in Ypsilanti, Michigan. Deva Madhava applies there and teaches widely. I think his input would be very valuable in discussing and applying Parupakar Varnasrama. Yes, an absolutely genius vision like a Chincha Veda Veda Tattva, here and now, step by step. So I'm glad someone mentioned that. I should contact him. Deva Madhava. Do you know this devotee, Deva Madhava?
No, I don't.
Okay, so but I'm making a note because it came to mind before, and then you know, so I should contact him. Is Atmananda still on? If you have a contact information, I don't know if he's still on. If you, maybe he's not there anymore. Okay.
I'm still here. I'm
Oh,
still
you
here.
are.
If you put Harmony Collective into Google, it'll come up with their Facebook page and their website. It's all there.
Okay.
I'm surprised you're not aware so much of what because he's been doing a lot of preaching about applying Prabhupada's principles in the here and now, setting up all kinds of structures. He's written something called the Bhakta's Bill of Rights, not only about how to bring in leaders, but also having the structure for people who are not functioning as leaders or who aren't carrying through. It's quite extraordinary what he's preaching and applying. It's not just talk.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. I'll look to have him on and explore those things. That's wonderful. And it's also my intention and hope that simply by the sound vibration, I think there was a lull in the discussion around Varnasrama and its potential, and simply by having these types of discussions, and there's the hope that there will be more coming out of these as well. So there's a hand up, Nartam Prabhu. Go ahead.
Thank you for your inspiration in that regard, Vaninath Prabhu.
Yeah, Dandawas, I just wanted to say I go to the Harmony Collective. I'm here in Michigan. I know Deva Madhava personally. I can I don't know his personal number, but I know his Facebook. I'm in touch with him regularly. If you want, I can give you his information. But I just wanted to say, because of him, we were able to do a lot of Harinams in Michigan. It was especially during the spring, summer, and fall times. We go to the Facebook.
Rose up.
And just downtown. So it really helps. The Harinam and regular kirtans help. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but Harinam and kirtan at least twice a week, regularly. It helps so much in just the development of the overall vision of Srila Prabhupada. So, Dandavats. I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Any other questions? Go ahead, Apuranath Prabhu.
I was just wondering if it's possible, in your view, that most ISKCON devotees, or at least most of those from outside the Hindu community, are mixed Varnas like yourself, and if so, does that present a problem in implementing Daivi Varnashram? And if not, why not?
Well, I don't think it hasn't been a problem in India. I think that although, we can criticize that Varnashram has gone downhill, but for hundreds and even thousands of years, they've maintained at least some semblance of Varnashram, and it's broken down into different communities and jatis, and I mean the original four Varnas are, they're still followed, but there's a lot of allegiance to jati. That's mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, jati dharma. So I don't see that it's a problem. We have this basic instruction for Prabhupada to do the needful, and in Manu also and Bhagavatam there's this discussion of do the needful. That, in other words, if you can't survive as a Brahmin doing one of the Brahmin functions, teaching and study and that kind of thing, then you're not expected to starve to death. Certain conditions exist, and you should therefore take up a different kind of occupation. So it's not as rigid as, I forgot his name, that other devotee who presented, he wanted to know what my Varna was. It's not as rigid as I think we sometimes imagine. There's there's a lot of flexibility, and in my way of thinking, there's also flexibility in the way we implement it. Just to sit everyone down in a classroom. I mean, the way I would propose implementing it, I mentioned that I'm writing a novel. So the way I'm implementing Varnasrama in my novel, because I can say anything in the novel, I don't I don't have to reference Shastra. In my other books, I'm very careful to reference Shastra. But in my novel, I can say whatever I want. So the way I implement Varnasrama and Varnashram College is that I rely heavily on mentorship. So you send somebody to work with a business person to be like an intern, like you in modern days there's interns. In old days there were apprentices. So you send somebody to be an apprentice or an intern, and if they don't work out, you redirect them. So this is a practical way of seeing where people fit. It's not just that you all of a sudden decide, oh, I think this guy's a Brahmin, or let me take an aptitude test, or give him an aptitude test, or something like that. Well, this is a very practical way. Can you do the function? Do you have that inclination? So that's my concept of how it might work. And so maybe we try 2 or 3 times. One person is not suited to be a kshatriya, manager, or whatever, and then so we send them somewhere else. So I think there has to be flexibility, and as we know from Prabhupada, do the needful. So was that is that what did I respond to your question, or did I don't know, I might have gone off on a tangent. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it was an interesting response. I was just wondering, I guess you're saying, I mean, it doesn't matter that we, at least those of us who are not born in the Hindu system of Varna and Ashram, because, even in India nowadays, the modern government it's against the law in many respects to emphasize Varna, but anyway, for those of us who are just, not born in Hindu families and without any idea about Varnashram Dharma, we have to decide what Varna we are, and just like yourself, I would imagine many of us would find, we're mixed Varnas. We don't have certain characteristics that are required of Brahmanas, and we're able to do different. And if so, then if we're talking about implementation in terms of like really dividing us into 4 Varnas, wouldn't that present a problem? But I'm always interested in your responses anyway.
No, I don't think it presents a problem. I think we have to be flexible, because our main mission is service to Krishna. So that will always be our mission. So in pursuit of that, we have to be practical, but we want to collect people, and we want to organize people, and we want to have a complete society. One of my observations, I believe anyway, whether somebody else agrees or not, I don't know. But one of my observations is that ISKCON is a Brahmin society. Prabhupada indicates that in that conversation on February 14th, 1977, that we have a Brahmin society. He conceived of that, actually, that ISKCON would be a Brahmin society. We give everyone Brahmin initiation. Prabhupada was giving us right from the beginning. So, but Varnashram is complete. It's got all the ashrams. And I feel that we don't have enough Shudras, that we generally don't pick up a lot of Shudras in our organization. And I think there's a reason for that we emphasize Brahman, we emphasize Bhakti Shastri now. It's become even, in some sense, it's become even more Brahminical. I mean, yes, we have Shudras, we have Vaishyas, we have But the top three, the Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, we have a lot of those, and a lot of Indians or are business people. They're either Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya. They're making a lot of money, but not so many Shudras. And Shudras are 95% of the population. They're a lot. So I think that we need to have we need to implement Varnashram as a complete society. So it may mean that there has to be a separate organization from ISKCON. ISKCON is just the Brahmin organization, or either that or else ISKCON has to change its scope somehow to become a Varnashram organization. Anyway, this is just something I've thought about, like my opinion that's not based on Shastra.
Any other questions? Some more other questions? Let's see if there's anything in the chat. I think I'm at the bottom there. Someone mentions they are very interested in your novel. Please let me know when it will be available. Do you have a date or anything like that?
The novel.
Yes.
No, that's months away. No, I'm sending out these books here. This book, and
Okay.
translated into Spanish and French.
Okay.
I just sent some copies to Dayananda in France. I'm very hopeful that it will be well received in France.
There's a
This is
hand
one
up. There's a hand up, if you would.
Yep.
Nartam?
Yeah, so my question is in regards to implementing a Varnashram system where, like you had mentioned, like 90% of the population is Shudra in a working class, so to speak. So my question is, how important is like the legal aspect for not Varnashram and implementing in a society like America where, if we have devotee lawyers that are able to create a structure for a functioning of a Varnashram system that is in line with Srila Prabhupada's principles, but also harmonizes with the U.S. legal background and being able to set laws for land ownership and working rights and everything like that, and then ideally living off the land environment and other aspects. How um, I guess that's my question is, would it be important for devotees who feel so inclined to take up legal professions and then use that as a service to help them implement the Varnashram? Because that's been something that's been on my mind is maybe I should go into the legal profession so we can create a structure for practical implementation of farming societies. So that's what I wanted to know.
Yes. Well, a couple of responses. One is that I presented that idea in were you here for the beginning presentation that I made?
Yeah.
The first 20 minutes. Well, one of the slides was a discussion of a legal system that very similar to what you're describing. And again, I talk about that in my novel. But the what I would envision is that we have something similar to other religions. The Jews and the Muslims, it's legal in this country and many other countries, not all countries, but in this country, it's legal to have, for example, a Jewish court that enforces Jewish law. Now, it can't be in contradiction to the state and federal laws, but they have certain laws that they have about family matters and perhaps I don't know what all they are, but they're more domestic sort of things. And then there's Muslims. They also have their own courts. So we can have that type of thing, just as you were describing, that we can construct our own legal system. And yes, it could be for now, it has to conform with the state and federal law. But in the future, we might be able to influence state and federal law, or somehow establish something more independent.
Hmm. Yes, that's an interesting
Oh,
topic.
and you said lawyers. Yes, we have lawyers that have, in some cases, really saved ISKCON. Amarendra, he's been an amazing support to ISKCON, an early lawyer. Early on in the movement, he got his degree. Amarendra opened the Gainesville Center, and he was very instrumental. Amarendra is like this amazing devotee. Everyone should say a prayer to Amarendra every day. Just, I'm joking, but he's a wonderful devotee, and he's just done amazing service for Prabhupada. That
Mm.
here it starts out with opening the center in Gainesville, and he started distributing prasadam in the university, and they've been doing it for 40, 50 years since then.
Mm.
And then he became a lawyer, and he represented ISKCON in legal cases and to try to distribute books in airports and different places, and he represented ISKCON in other lawsuits. And so, yes, lawyers. And Balavanta is a lawyer, and Guru Garanga. These are very old devotees, and I'm sure there are many others who are lawyers as well. So, yeah, ISKCON has lawyers.
Mhm. Thanks for that. Thank you for glorifying Amarendra. He's a temple president when I joined here in Gainesville. Yes, go back. Wait. So, are there any other questions? Let's see. I did have you answered that one. At the beginning of, I made a shorthand note of a question and I can't decipher it here. But in any case, I'll just once again mention that your book, The Perfect Society, Daivi Varnasrama, is available on Amazon, and contact you. Could you put your contact information again in the chat? Could you do that, please?
Oh, in the chat, yeah.
Yes, please, just so that persons can contact you both for these slides and also for the book, the free book, the solutions that you were mentioning.
Yeah.
Okay, and that gives me a moment to see if I can decipher my question. And then Akoranath does have a question. Go ahead.
Dayananda. Let me just say, it's Dayananda at cvc.guru. So it's like a kind of an unusual, it's not .com, it's .guru. I found that.
Thank you. Akoranath Peru?
I'm wondering to what extent, that there's too much Varnasankara in society, that people have to change their whole sort of mentality and qualities to actually have a Daivi Varnashram Dharma. That if people are all selfish and pursuing sense gratification as the goal of life, then just putting them in categories without teaching them to actually dedicate their works to pleasing the Supreme might be ineffective. What's your response to that?
My response is Sankirtan Yajna. I define Sankirtan Yajna as celebration of Krishna's Leelas and Namas. I think we need to spend millions and millions, not on temples, but on Sankirtan Yajna. We need to be out in the streets. We need to have festivals every month. I mean, there is precedent. I can give you quotes from Prabhupada on this. We should have a festival every month at least. Every big temple should spend like 100, 250,000 on a festival, and maybe $1 million once a year for Rath Yatra. I mean, lots and lots of money, lots of effort, everyone involved. Festivals, Leela celebration, Krishna Leela, Vishnu Leela. There's so many Leelas, Chaitanya Leela. All these, I think that Sankirtan is the answer, and then it's enjoyment. So people enjoy sense gratification. The whole idea is rasavarjang rasopyasya. We have to give the higher taste. And the only thing we have to give is the Sankirtan. And that's our weapon also. That's the way we
Prasada.
conquer people. It's the astra, it's the weapon. That's the Sankirtan. We're not allowed to do like other religions, and well, maybe our Kshatriyas can conquer some countries, but really the way to propagate is not through force, but through offering this higher enjoyment, which is lila and nama. Anandam buddhivardhanam. That's my answer. Okay.
Yes, very good. I know in ISKCON of Silicon Valley with Vaisheshika there, where I have been until recently, they do have a monthly Sankirtan festival, and they get all the devotees involved in book distribution as well as a big Harinam with a light show and book tables and stuff, and it's very nice. I often wondered, we do Rath Yatra, and that's a big expense. In fact, I'm going to LA for Rath Yatra this tomorrow. Yeah, Rath Yatra is on Sunday, but that I noticed that maybe we could have like a Krishna Janmashtami where we take over part of downtown, like, they have Cinco de Mayo and things like that. There's enough Hindu Indians in the United States now that, in many big cities, of course, people on Janmashtami, they want to come to the temple, but it would be nice if we had like a street festival with selling lots of Krishna books and explaining about, who is Krishna and what is Janmashtami about, why it's such a big holiday in India,
Yeah, public celebrations. I think that's what this movement is about. That Chaitanya's movement, Prabhupada's movement. We're getting there. And Charu had that idea. Vaisheshika is another devotee. Right after, or maybe before, I can't decide, the prayer that we say to Amarendra, that daily prayer we can say one to Vaisheshika also. There's lots of devotees. I'd be here all day saying prayers to all these devotees, No, the Vaisheshika is fantastic.
I missed a little because I had a phone call that I had to take, so I missed a little just now. I didn't hear about the Amarendra prayer, but
Oh yeah. No, Vaisheshika is. No, I was just saying how great Amarendra is, but Vaisheshika is fantastic. Yeah, I visited there once, and about 3 years ago, and I went on Harinam with the devotees. I was very impressed. I thought, man, this is it. This is the real thing here. And the fact that he's done it all with an Indian community. I thought, and devotees complained that, oh, the Indians are not really in Chaitanya's mood or Prabhupada's mood. But here, Vaisheshika is.
They're all studying Prabhupada's books like mad, and they've got families, and they're getting the kids off to school, and they're also chanting 16 rounds and earning a good living.
Yeah, it's another example of how this movement has turned out. It's just amazing. Yeah, Vaisheshika and when you go to LA, I don't know if they do it every year, but if you see in the front of the temple, last time I went, they had like a big pond that they put like a temporary kind of children's swimming pool kind of thing. And they do like this Krishna Lila with the boat, with Krishna riding a boat in the middle of that little lake that they create, and with the gopis. And so that's another thing that it's a celebration of Krishna Lila. And in Mayapur also, they celebrate many Leelas, like they have even, Govardhan, obviously, but with some Vishnu Leela, I forget, one of the Dashavatars. So there are many celebrations that devotees do in the temple, but I agree 100% with you that like Cinco de Mayo and other festivals, maybe we don't take over the downtown or something, but in parks, there's a million parks everywhere, all over the place, and devotees should be out there celebrating. It's attractive.
I thought downtown would be, we'd have the Indians from the community, the Hindus from the community would love to bring their families to a festival, and then the rest of society would see that, oh, this is a big Janmashtami, Krishna's birthday is a big deal.
Yeah.
that culture, and which is one of the, I mean, there's more Indians in the world now than Chinese. It's the largest population, but not all of them are devotees, obviously. And but I thought that would be a good idea, but it would take a lot of on Janmashtami we have a lot of people at the temple dealing with all the hordes of people that are coming to see the deities in the temple, and it might be not a good time to divert that kind of manpower and also the money and resources. But it could be done very nicely, like Janmashtami, to have a Krishna's birthday festival, and take over a couple of blocks downtown with lots of prasadam and literature and discussion about Krishna and who he is and what it means and stuff.
Yeah, I agree. So you're a young man. You should do it, huh?
I'm not so young anymore. I could try. I could try
Do you
to
have
do
any
something.
final questions? I see the hour is getting a little late. I appreciate so much your time, Prabhu, and your presentation. But I do want to ask if there are any final questions. Otherwise, we'll call it a wrap.
Yeah, call a wrap. Yeah.
Okay. So thank you all for your kind attendance. Vanchakapa, Tribhushcha, Sindhu. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dayananda Prabhu.
I should be having this
Hare Krishna.
replay available within the next week. I'm a little slow with things, but I should have that up, and I will alert you via email to it being available. Okay. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Lord Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Bhagavad Prabhupada.